What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a Q&A for how to get started on Airbnb in 2025 and 2026. You guys seem to love the Q&A videos, so I've decided to jump back on here with my girlfriend Cassie, and she is going to rattle off the questions that you guys have, and I'm going to give you the answers. So if you're interested in learning how to start an Airbnb business in 2025 and 2026, make sure to stick until the end. All right, so let's get right into it. First question.
Okay, so Nathan asked, is Airbnb too saturated for someone starting out in 2026?
All right, great question, Nathan. And I get this one a lot. Honestly, it's probably one of the most common questions. And Airbnb is not too saturated. What is saturated is the number of people on Airbnb that have very, very standard basic properties, which that does not work anymore. And that's a big piece of how Airbnb has changed in this year. So when you know how to do your market research and understand what makes a winning property, which in today's day and age is amenities and experiences, so having really cool amenities, that is going to be crucial in making sure that you stand out in your market wherever you choose to do Airbnb and getting a winning property and creating a winning property. And when you have that and you're competitive, you beat everybody else out, and then it is not too saturated. So that's a long-winded answer for no, it's not too saturated. But if you go in and just put very basic furniture and you don't do much research and your property looks like everyone else's property, yes, you will not do well in Airbnb in 2026. And if you do know what you're doing, then you have a great opportunity ahead of you to really crush it. So no, it's not too saturated. Good question.
Okay, so I'm Christy. How much money do I need in total to start?
Okay, so it completely depends on which model you're following with Airbnb. So there's Airbnb Arbitrage, purchasing and owning your real estate, your Airbnb properties, short-term rentals, and then there's colisting. So if you've got limited capital to start, Airbnb Arbitrage is a great way, which is basically when you just rent a property from a landlord, and with their permission, they allow you to put it on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, all of these other platforms. And how much does it start to cost? You really just need to pay for the furniture. So if you're looking at like a 3-bedroom property, roughly about $10,000 to $12,000, and then your first month's security deposit, and that's pretty much it, right? Your cost of your LLC, which is a couple $100. That is it. Now, if you find a property that is furnished already and you just need to kind of enhance the furniture and enhance the amenities, then you can wipe off a big chunk of that furniture cost. So you're looking at really just a few $1,000s. But again, that's only if you already found a property that's already furnished to the degree that is competitive in Airbnb today. Co-listing is the other way. If you have no money to start, it's a great way to get into Airbnb and short-term rentals with pretty much $0. You just have to have an LLC. And that model is when you find properties that are listed for rent by landlords and you manage the property for them and you list it on all the short-term rental platforms. You just manage cleanings, the guests, and you just take a cut. So if that property, let's say, generates $5,000 a month, you would generate, let's call it 20%. You can charge 15 to 25 to 30%. So on average, your commission for whatever it brings in that month would be 20%. So you'd make $1,000 for literally just handling, cleaning the property and managing the guests, which takes you virtually no time. And you can build a massive portfolio doing co-listing or co-hosting, which is Airbnb management. And if you're purchasing a property, then it completely depends on how much your property is. And the cost of that, of course, is your down payment, which if you've worked with me, you know we don't always have to go to the bank. There's a lot of creative financing strategies where you can have the seller play the bank so you don't have to get these high interest rates that are currently in the market. And you can take over existing mortgages that have very low interest rates. So for those of you that are interested in learning how to do that, you can click the link in the description. I have a free course on how to start Airbnb from A to Z. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, I teach you exactly how to do that with limited money to start, how to purchase property. Then you can get a property with much less than 20% down, which is what is the standard if you go to the bank. Yes, there are ways and different type of loans where you can only have to put 5 to 10 to 15% down going through the banks. But right now, you're going to have about a 6 to 7% interest rate at least going through them. So it's all about structuring the right deal. Going back to the question, how much it costs, you're going to have your closing costs and your down payment of, let's call it roughly 20% if you're going to the banks, but you can go down as little as 5, 10, even 15% if you are good at negotiating and find a deal that makes sense to work out a seller financing deal with the seller. So those are the answers for how much it costs to start based on the different Airbnb model that you are moving forward with.
Okay,
All right, next question.
So what is the easiest type of property to start with?
Okay, so I'm going to assume they're asking like what kind of home, apartments, houses. If you've worked with me, have always advocated for starting out with houses because there's more margin. The larger the house, the more bedrooms, you can pretty much drive more revenue and more profit per unit. But apartments are also a phenomenal way to start. And just you'll have to expect that you'll earn a little bit less because it's a smaller unit. You can house less people in it, which just logically makes sense. So I prefer to go for larger properties with multiple bedrooms, and you'll have more meat on the bone left after your expenses and after your mortgage or your rent to keep as profit. But again, all of this matters even within an apartment on being able to negotiate low expenses like your low rent or having a low mortgage and being able to cash flow it. So you have to do the right research regardless of the property that you go with. And when you know how to do the right property research and market research, then you know how to find the best performing asset class and type of property in the particular market that you're looking at. So you can make Airbnb work with any sort of property. It just depends on the market, and you need to know how to do that market research. There's tools like airdna.co, which I've talked about. I have plenty of other videos. I'll also leave the link somewhere here where you can learn how to do your market research, and I go in much more detail there. It's not so much about the type of property. Again, personally, I prefer the larger single-family homes, but you can also do Airbnb, even with apartments. Depends on your budget and how much money you got to start and which Airbnb model you move forward with. Good questions.
Okay, so from Ali, how as a beginner do I know if I'm choosing the right market?
Okay, so this kind of goes back to what I just mentioned about the market research and where you're looking. The beautiful thing about Airbnb is you can run your business from anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country. It doesn't matter where you are. You can manage it remotely once you automate and set up your business correctly. What it comes down to is market research for profitability and also regulations. You want to choose a market that is allowing short-term rentals, which you can use ChatGPT, Google, and Airbnb to look up your city, town, wherever it is that you're looking to do Airbnb and see if it's permitted. Do you need a license? Are there restrictions around being able to do short-term rentals or not? That's number one. And then number two, what kind of supply and demand there is for Airbnbs in that market. So we could talk about market research all day long. And in fact, for everybody that I work with one-on-one, they can tell you that the first thing and the most important thing we look at and spend the most time on is the market research and choosing the right market and the right property. So there's many factors that go into that. I just gave you a few, but get familiar with all of the tools. Like Airbnb is a great resource for doing your market research and looking up how booked or not booked properties are in the particular area you're looking at. Using AirDNA to also validate all that information and get even more metrics. All of this works together and should all be part of your market research. So I might have gone on a tangent, but I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so last question is, how do I know if a property will be profitable?
All right, so when you are looking at profitability for a property, it again comes down to, oh wow, that's a beautiful view. I wish I could show you guys, but I'd have to pull the camera off here. We're driving through the mountains right now in California. Say that again. So the question was,
how do I know if a property will be profitable?
Yes. So first thing is first, having a deal analyzer, which is something that everybody that I work with, in fact, comment the word calculator and I can get that over to you. But you punch in all your expenses for a property. So rent, utilities, landscaper, pool maintenance person, whatever the case is, having your expenses, and then understanding by doing your property research, market research on Airbnb, seeing how much those properties are generating that are similar to yours in that area, using AirDNA to pull up all those metrics as well and validate that. Once you have an idea of how much generally those properties are doing that are similar to yours, and again, make sure you watch my video on how to do market research or my free course video. I go into more detail on this. Once you identify those numbers, then you just subtract your expenses and you should get a ballpark of how much is left as profit. So for example, if you go to do arbitrage for a property that the rent is $2,000 a month, and then you've got expenses, utilities, and then when you go look on Airbnb and AirDNA and you find identical or very similar short-term rentals that are doing on average, let's say $5,000 a month, then you know your expenses will be about $3,000 a month and you're left with $2,000 a month in profit. It's that simple. So again, you need to know how to compare properties and find comps so that you're confident in your decision before you choose a property, especially if you're buying and especially if you're doing arbitrage, because you want to make sure that the numbers check out. And when I work with people one-on-one, we use a deal analyzer where we punch in all of those expenses, all that information, and find as accurately as possible on Airbnb and using AirDNA and these market research tools to understand how well that property is likely to perform, and really creating a better property with better amenities and better listing. And once you do that, you have a high degree of certainty on how well your Airbnb is going to do on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, and being able to calculate your profit. So that was the last question, right? Awesome. So these are all amazing questions, guys. Airbnb is still an amazing opportunity in 2026 if you know what you're doing. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And if you have any other questions for me, make sure to leave a comment, like, comment, subscribe. It really helps me put more videos like this out to you and supports the channel. And for those of you that are looking to understand and learn how to start your Airbnb business from scratch in 2026, click the link in the description. I have a completely free course that goes into all of this, and we touch on a lot of the topics that were part of these questions today. And then for those of you that are more serious about starting your business and want to work with me one-on-one, I walk you through step by step exactly how to start your business, get your property, get it all listed, and how to dominate your competition in 2026. So I handhold you through that process. You can click the link, apply, and if you qualify, I'll be reaching out to you. For the rest of you, thanks again for watching, and until the next one, be great.